On this episode of Just In Case You Forgot, I will be talking about the Finishing Stacey's Fight Facebook page and what I can of the second interview that I had with Detective Jeff Bessinger.
They still reach out to me. They still, check on me. They're amazing humans. And they're pushing this through. They're trying to help get resolution for her, justice for her.
Someone said something about her. Like, there's no way in 25 years that it hasn't been talked about. There's just no way.
Now on Just In Case You Forgot.
Just In Case You Forgot podcast is produced and hosted by William Swafford. Music was put together by William Swafford.
I want to start off this episode by saying something about the upstairs neighbor who had talked to law enforcement and said that he had heard noises in the early morning hours of March 22nd of 1998. I do want to say that he was cleared of any wrongdoing with the investigation into Stacey's death. He simply made a mistake of not contacting anyone if he thought Stacey was being hurt. Now, in the last episode, I did say that Detective Bessinger did agree to talk to me again. However, a lot of my questions could not be answered. I will talk a little bit about what I can. I asked Detective Bessinger if he knew who had taken Stacey home from the Arlington Cafe the night before Stacey had gone missing. He said that the person who took Stacey home that night was not a person of interest. I asked the detective if the hunter who had found Stacey's remains was the landowner or not. If he wasn't, was the landowner questioned about who all had access to the land in Delaware County?
No, he was not. It's owned by a Barnes or something like that, Barnes, I believe. But no, he was looking for his lost hunting dog, but he was not the property owner.
Now, was the property owner asked and questioned about who might have had access to the land to maybe hunt and fish and things like that?
Yes.
Yes. Was anything panned out
and
from
the names that they gave were ruled out?
I asked if there was any evidence that could give a clue on how someone got Stacey out of the apartment. Detective Bessinger answered my question and also answered the next question that I had for him at the same time, because my next question for him was going to be if he thought Stacey was murdered inside of her apartment.
Can you comment on that?
Well, she was a small woman. She was like 5'2". So she wasn't a very big person. Our thoughts are, she obviously didn't leave voluntarily. My thoughts are that it was a body that was removed. I believe she died in the apartment. You're just dealing with a small statue woman that's probably 100 pounds at the time, 5'2",
There's a 2-day time span between March 22nd, when noises were heard from Stacey's apartment, to March 24th, when Danielle, Stacey's sister, had gone to the apartment. I asked the detective what day he figured that Stacey was taken out of her apartment.
I think she left the apartment. It's a guess. I don't know. But I think that she left the night of or the early morning hours before daylight. I don't believe that she was dead in the apartment for any extended period. Probably in the cover of darkness, whether he carried her out or willed her out or whatever. But, I believe she was killed and then removed from the property that early morning in the dark.
There was the question of whether or not the neighbors were questioned about any unfamiliar vehicles in the parking area of Governor Square Complex around the time Stacey had gone missing. I was told that there was a suspicious vehicle in the area that was seen by a witness and was possibly linked to an acquaintance of Stacey's. I wish I could have gotten more answers from Detective Bessinger. However, I do understand that this is still an ongoing homicide investigation. And if you do have any information on the death of Stacey Colbert, please contact Detective Jeff Bessinger at the Delaware County Sheriff's Department in Ohio. This is the last episode of what I am calling Season 1. I am calling it the end of Season 1 because I need more information on this investigation. And when I get more information, you will hear about it right here on Just In Case You Forgot. I want to talk a little bit about Stacey's sorority sisters and the Finishing Stacey's Fight Facebook page. They're the ones who are keeping up Stacey's fight for justice. Everyone who is listening to this podcast should check out Finishing Stacey's Fight Facebook page. Here's what Danielle had to say about the Alpha Delta Pi sorority sisters.
They still reach out to me. They still, check on me. They're amazing humans. And they're pushing this through. They're trying to help get resolution for her, justice for her.
People can see pictures of Stacey on the Facebook page and things about the cold case. I asked Danielle about the Finishing Stacey's Fight Facebook page.
Who started the Facebook page?
Paula did. Paula and Ashley. Yeah, Ashley and Stacey used to correspond over the summer, and she would address her last name as Not, and she would address it as Snot, and Stacey would be, what does she call her now? Like, I'm blanking out now that I've talked for so long. She called her this nickname that, like, she would never let me call her it. And, they were all incredibly close, her and Ashley and, Paula and Katie and, two Katies, and, they were all so close. And, I'm sure I'm leaving people out. They were a good bunch of people. She was very lucky to have made those kinds of relationships so early, and it, gives me a little bit of hope that the short amount of years that she was on this earth, she lived them to the fullest because of the relationships and the connections that she had, and all of those, Florida trips and getting to work for the Olympics, and like even the apparel mart. She worked with these professionals, and she got to experience quite a bit of things that people never do, and have just loving, wonderful friendships of girls who would do anything for each other. And not a lot of people get that, even in long lives,
Yeah, that's great.
I don't know. I don't know if I've done her justice. I hope so.
I think that you are, because you ain't given up yet. I mean,
no, I never will. So even when it's hard and you're, on that bottom floor, exhausted and tired and sad, and trying to, do your best in your day to day. That's, I was supposed to be her protector, and I feel like it's an epic failure. But I miss her terribly. But she's still a part of me, and she's I see her in my kids too, so which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
So it's they're their own spirits, I will say that, but I definitely see hints of some things that they inherited from her.
This is Paula.
So it was a collaborative effort. Last fall, I don't know why, there wasn't anything significant about the time of year, but I just couldn't stop thinking about Stacey. She was on my mind all the time. I'd be sitting at work and I would just start crying and hoping no one would come into my office, because I don't like to talk about this. I didn't want to have to explain why I was crying, because that would just make me cry more. But it started to drive me crazy. And so finally I went to lunch with Ashley, and I just started bawling and telling her what I was feeling and going through. And she said she was having kind of the same experience. She kept thinking about Stacey all the time. And so she said she remembered the one guy that the police thought was guilty, who we now know was not. But when she found that one article, it said there were two people they were questioning. So she reached out to Danielle and wanted to know who the other one was. And Danielle, she didn't really know too much. So that was when we decided we wanted to try to contact the media. We're like, Reporters can go places police can't. Let's get reporters looking on this. Let's attract podcasters. How do we do it? Came up with the idea of the Facebook page. She came up with finishing Stacey's fight, which as soon as she said that, we knew it was perfect because it just conjures up in my mind that footprint on the back of that door that proves that Stacey fought for her life that night because he kicked that door shut to keep her from getting out. At some point, I honestly believe she almost got away from him because she fought back. And so Ashley and I and this other lady, we got this started. We brought Danielle in pretty much right away as well and started discussing what we wanted to do with this Facebook page, how it should function, and what we could do. Another thing is we absolutely believe that there are other victims of this man. And we're trying to reach them as well. Maybe he used it to intimidate somebody, told them what he did to this girl in Columbus, maybe, or a sorority girl, or whatever, however he called her. We absolutely believe that this is a psychopath, that he, if not a serial killer, he's at least a serial offender. There are other victims, and we're hoping that if they see finishing Stacey's fight, they will understand that they have the power to stop him. Though they might be cowering in the dark and feeling like he has all the power, he doesn't. They have the power. If they're still living and they can speak, they've got the power to stop him. We can't change what happened to Stacey. We can't change what's maybe happened to other people, but we can keep him from hurting someone else, and that's part of finishing Stacey's fight too. That's our hope.
Here is Alicia.
Yeah, so the 25-year anniversary is coming up. And when we think through, I can't believe it's been 25 years and we're not even one step closer. And I am so thankful for the people that are organizing that. Like what I told you, like in the beginning, of like before we started today's conversation, like over the years, I would just go to Google and just like search her name, just thinking about her, just wondering like, oh my gosh, is there anything out there about her? Are other people still thinking about her? And just doing like a Google search on Stacey Colbert. And like maybe one article would show up and then the rest was related to like other things, like, oh my gosh, I think like the character from Will and Grace was named Stacey Colbert, and like all this other random crap. And now, thanks to the people that are organizing finishing Stacey's fight, when I Google Stacey Colbert, I'm seeing links, I'm seeing connections to other things. I am seeing my best friend's name up there, and that just gives me hope that there is someone out there that knows something that will just call the police, even if they're anonymous. Just call the police. If something just didn't sit right with you or doesn't feel right, it's like you know in your heart that trust your gut on that. Just call the police, even if it's anonymous, just to give them that. That could be the one piece of information that they need to make that connection. When I think about like how much technology has come from the late 90s to now, maybe they need that one connection to be able to look at past evidence that they have and just help make us one step closer to finding out what happened and who did this.
Here is Katie on Finishing Stacey's Fight Facebook page.
Can you please tell me about the Facebook page?
Sure. So I am not the person that runs it, but as we got to being, about 25 years out, and we gotten to this point where, the police have had some ideas, but they've never been able to really get to the point of, being sure who did it and charging them. Just could we raise the profile of this cold case, and, could we get somebody, even if it's not the person that did it, just somebody else that might have some little piece of evidence to just feel like, okay, a lot of time has gone past. I'm gonna bring this thing up. Maybe their perspective on the events is different 25 years later. So I think part of it is is practical, that kind of thing, trying to solve the case. And I think the other part is just sort of honoring Stacey, that it's been 25 years, but she was a real person, and we loved her, and we still remember her. And even though nothing can undo what happened, we just kind of want to show that that we'll never forget, and that we'll never stop hoping that this case will be solved.
This is Ashley and myself talking about the Facebook page.
Tell me about the Finishing Stacey's Flight Facebook page.
My friend and I were down in a Wahlburgers restaurant, and we were both just kind of talking, and we were both like, we feel like a pull from her. Like, I don't know how to describe it. You can just sometimes feel her. And both of us were feeling it. And we're like, all right, well, why don't we just do something? Like, we've got people, we've got resources, and we reached out to, and it's 25 years later, so we're older, we're smarter, and we've got, that much work experience. So we reached out to one of our other sorority sisters, and, she was kind of guiding us along. We didn't really know what we were doing. And then the Facebook page started to take shape, and I basically ripped apart my basement for a couple of weeks and tried to find everything that I could. All those letters are mine that are up there, all the newspaper articles, stuff that I had in my basement, and then, of course, all the stuff from the Find Stacey campaign. So I was working for a software company, so I've got the volunteer list that I printed out from a Microsoft Active database I created. So we just kind of started just putting more and more stuff up there, and then it just became a kind of a hub where everything that we have is up there. Obviously, I didn't put up the entirety of the letters, but we just kind of wanted a place for it to be if someone's looking for something or wanting to see. Someone said something about her. Like, there's no way in 25 years that it hasn't been talked about. There's just no way.
I told Ashley how I come up with the title for the podcast.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I was sitting there trying to think of a title. I had like 3 of them jotted down, and I just couldn't decide. And I was looking through those pictures and things and trying to think of a cover idea. And I seen that where she signed her name, and I looked at it once before, but I never noticed that right underneath it she wrote "just in case you forgot" with an arrow pointing up to it, to her name.
Oh, yeah.
That is how the title come up. So,
of course she named her own podcast.
Yep. So that was my thought, because when I sit there, I looked at that, I'm like, well, fuck, that's the title. Excuse my language. But that's what I said. I'm like, that is the title. I'm like, she just named her own freaking podcast.
That's awesome. It was hard to share those, so that makes me happy.
But yeah, that's where the title comes from. And if you see the cover, I actually traced over her handwriting because I was going to use the original letter and use that, but I wanted it to look more professional. So I actually traced over her handwriting to get that cover. So
I saw you wrote that. I'm going to take a better look at it. I didn't take as hard a look at that as I.
But yeah, if you match, you could match that up with the letter. So
that's awesome.
And that's why it looks the way that it's all crooked and stuff. That's the reason why that is, because I try to match it up as best as possible.
Well, and she kind of wrote it like in the corner too.
Yeah.
That's back when you wrote letters and you ran out of room. You had to write like along the edges.
Yep. So, that's how that come up.
I do want to thank everyone who helped with this podcast. I will say again, this is not the end of Just In Case You Forgot. You will hear from me again when new information comes in. I also can be contacted at miopodcast@outlook.com. if anyone would like to talk about the Stacey Colbert investigation. I want to see justice for Stacey Colbert. I feel like I was brought into this for a reason, but that reason is just another unanswered question added to my already existing stack of unanswered questions on the Stacey Colbert investigation.
She was a light. She always had a ready smile. She would do anything for you. Her laugh could fill a room. She's really smart, short, dynamic. Of course, all of us, in my family are pretty short, my side of the family. She had a heart of gold and was very driven towards goals, goal-driven. Just a wonderful human being.
She was the one everyone could turn to. She was bright. There were always boys around her. She was so outgoing. She didn't know a stranger. She trusted everybody until you really gave her a reason not to.
Stacey had just transferred in that quarter to Ohio State, so she was also looking to meet some people. So we initially met at bid day at the sorority house, and so I remember just liking her immediately, feeling like I had known her forever. She had a great energy, great smile, easy to talk to, very authentic or genuine seeming person, not very concerned with, seeming like she was cool or had it all together, anything like that. So we immediately started hanging out together. We stayed at the house during the initiation week, and we had to sleep like two in a single bed. So like one head at each end of the bed. And then I remember we thought that was funny, and we were supposed to stay on campus during that initiation week too, and we like snuck off down the city center mall one time together. So we really liked each other right away. It was definitely something through the sorority that we had met.
The very first time that I met Stacey was when I came to Ohio State University and came to the 80 Pie house. I came as a transfer, so I didn't have like a set group of friends coming in. And when I very first came to Ohio State and to the 80 Pie house affiliating to that sorority from my old college, she was one of the first people that I met. You could just see there was just like this spark, this light within her.
And I can still see her standing on the corner, waving goodbye. And that's the last time I saw her.
Just In Case You Forgot podcast is produced and hosted by William Swafford. Music was put together by William Swafford.
Hey true crime fans, if you like Just In Case You Forgot, you will also want to check out Murderers in Ohio on YouTube. Murderers in Ohio is about men and women who have been convicted of murder in the state of Ohio. And it is hosted by myself, Bill Swafford. So go to Murderers in Ohio on YouTube and subscribe now.
So we got a killer on a run in Ohio.